I'm Pete Waterman, and this is a collection of stories told by the last generation of men to earn their livings working on steam locomotives. I'm in the music business now, but I've had a lifelong passion for everything to do with steam. Most of the men were working on steam locomotives between 1924 and the last days of steam in August 1968. There's something about steam that once you've got it, it don't let you go. For many, it started at a very early age.
Maybe I was born with steam in my blood because from my earliest recollection I loved steam engines and the railways.
You're not middle-aged when you fall in love with steam engines. You fall in love with steam engines as a child.
I can remember a lot. Being found playing with my mate Bill Gullick and the station master's soot at the side of the line. We both got a backside smacked all the way home. I think we were 3.
Fascination with railways was because I was interested in the steam locomotive. To see these trains going up and down the railway lines through the valley was an interest to me. We hadn't in those war years been able to obtain toy trains and that to play with, but I was still interested in railways.
Where I lived in an area called West Lee, it was surrounded by railways, colliery railways, the main line from Kenyon Junction to Bolton, and I was within sight and sound of railways from birth, virtually.
Put on the footplate, I must have been about 4 or 4.5, that sort of age. Because there were 2 enormous men and all this heat, this great big fire, and so I didn't like it. I asked to be taken off again straight away.
And when I started school, the school was on the other side of the line in the middle of Didsbury Village, and somehow a couple of young school friends at 5 and 6 years old, we nearly always walked down into Taylor's Coal Yard in Didsbury Village, which led down into the sidings, to watch the 9.6 or the 9.10 make its stop at Didsbury Station and start away again for St Pancras.
I used to go up to the sidings and watch the engines shunting up and down in the yards.
I suppose years ago, before there was cars and aeroplanes, railways, steam engines were the form of transport.
My love of railways started when I was about 7. And sure enough, what did I find but this girder bridge, so you could see all the trains down below.
And then one day, after standing on this bridge for weeks and weeks and weeks watching the comings and goings of this engine, the driver shouted, "Come on down." So I was down in a flash and on the footplate. And I used to ride up and down on this thing. Oh, and it was glorious. Absolutely brilliant.
But I think the best memory of all is the last of the long horse choppers, 6616. And I rode on the footplate of that with Bob Bailey. I was in short pants, and first thing I knew was my legs were being burnt. And we set off with this thing. Just get your head down as we passed Station Box, then head down again when we passed East Box, so he didn't see anything. And I always remember this thing because it was coil spring, and it was like riding on what would be Zebedee, I suppose. The beat of the engine sounded so different from inside the cab to how it did when you were on the line side. And it was a fearsome old thing.
My father had a coronary thrombosis in 1939, and he got over it, and they gave him a light job, which was driving one of the shunt engines at Carlton Sidings. And every Saturday, I used to go down there and drive the engine shunt the yard, and only got caught once, believe it or not, by a footplate inspector. He and my father had known each other for years, apparently, and he said, "Don't let me catch him again, though." He says, "He shouldn't be driving it, he's not even on the railway. He's not even old enough to be on the railway."
Well, I used to be sent to Sunday school on a Sunday afternoon, and instead of going to Sunday school, I used to forge the star on my attendance card and depart to the shed, for which there was all sorts of carryings on afterwards, especially when I just happened to have some grease on the back of my best jacket.
Well, there's always been railway enthusiasts. I mean, there's been railway enthusiasts, I suppose, as long as there's been railways. But train spotting started during the war. You see, an Alan Guy, he produced the first train spotting books, if you like. It was 1942, the first one. Been others about, but he made them popular. And the hobby just erupted. The boom time for train spotting would be the 1950s.
Saturday morning was good. You could stand on this footbridge and they'd come roaring up out of the tunnel. I mean, they were going really well because it was steady climb all the way from Cheadle, really. And they'd come roaring up out of the tunnel, so there'd be sort of a great plume of smoke above them as they came from the tunnel to the footbridge. Because you're standing over the track where the engine's coming. And on occasion, some of the drivers had let the engine down a turn on the reverser, just as they were coming under the bridge. It had suddenly gone like a volcano under the bridge. But that was really quite exciting. These sparks as big as oranges that you hear about.